In a previous recording, we went through an introduction to GIS and talked about how the computer sees things in GIS and this relationship between a spatial geometry or geography and the data that's associated with it. We utilized directions and we compared using an atlas or a Thomas guide to using a digital interface like a directions app. And the end result really was that there was some spatial part, there was some tabular part, and we covered the tabular part and some database rules because at the end of the day, what we really want to do is be able to do our own research, which would be our tabular data, and connect it to some spatial component so that we have a unified data set that has both we can use in GIS software. So now that we have dealt with the tabular part, we need to deal with the spatial part. Go ahead and open a browser. Google's fine. I've tried this with multiple browsers and it really doesn't matter which one. And in the search, type in TIGERLine. One word, 2 words, really shouldn't matter. What's going to end up coming up is the U.S. Census Bureau. This is where we want. TIGER stands for Topologically Integrated Geographic Encoding and Referencing. You don't really need to remember all that. If you just remember TIGERLine or Tiger Data, it'll connect you to the Census Bureau. So go ahead and select the first one here, getting to the Census Bureau, and this is your landing page. This is probably a good idea to bookmark this because you're going to need it again in the future, really for this course and any future demographic or market research. And you'll notice that this is really designed in conjunction with American Fact Finder. Just to pause for a moment, this is the clearinghouse for official data, boundary data. So the formal boundaries of the US or the states or whatever is published by local area formation committees for cities and other publicly available data sets that are published through here. So there's a huge depth to this portion. We're going to just focus on what's commonly used and really what's where you're going to need for this specific course in the exam. So at this point, let's kind of come down to this this box right here. Note that there are different years available for each data set. Some data sets change on a regular basis. Cities will grow, they might annex certain portions or they might relinquish certain portions to other agencies, whether it's other cities or counties that represent unincorporated areas. You might find that streets, if you wanted road data, that's going to change on a regular basis where roads are constructed and considered to be official roadways. Some things are not really going to change a whole lot, and things like state boundaries. State boundaries don't change a lot. There was a recent event in Hawaii where there was a volcanic eruption and new land masses actually came into being, and so there would be a small adjustment to that. But on the whole, it's not going to matter a whole lot which one which one we choose, but we want to be in good practice. Things that do change on a regular basis would be voting districts. So if you're, or census blocks. So if you're getting kind of into the nitty-gritty of things, you're going to want to make sure that your research, whatever you have in FactFinder, is represented here in TIGERLine or whatever your official data sets are going to be. So we're working with 2015, so let's select 2015 and we're going to download this data. You can use either the web interface or the FTP site. I have found that most students just prefer the web interface, but I'll go through both. So if you select the web interface, we're going to simply select the year. This is a little redundant, honestly. If you use the web interface, doesn't matter which one you start with, you'll end up at this landing page. So select the year that you're interested in. We're going to say 2015, and we're going to select the boundary that we're really looking for. So we can use, these are voting groups, or they group the census blocks and tracts together. If you want to look at voting histories, right? Cities, counties, county subdivisions. If you needed something to make your map look kind of nice, you can use the roads. Okay. We are going to use places, states, and equivalent. Here we go, states and equivalents. And then hit submit. And we're going to download that national file. If you had chosen something that had a need to subdivide further, something like voting blocks or census tracts, it would help you narrow it down so you didn't download, a petabyte of data. But here, there's just one choice. All right. And we want to make sure that we move this data to a convenient location. So right now it's probably in your downloads folder. I encourage you to move it to your ArcGIS folder. This is created through the installation of ArcGIS Pro, and it's going to be under your documents. And this is our database file. This is our spatial database. It's going to give us our state boundaries. Now, for those of you who were maybe thinking the FTP site was the way to go, if we simply select this one, the interface isn't quite as, well, it's not loading at all right now. So this is the FTP site, and it gets a little bit weird. So this is, I think, why most students prefer to use the web interface, because it's just nice and simple. But whatever suits your fancy. Just if you use this portion, you make sure that it has the year up here that you're after. So in the same case, we would simply just come down to state, and it would begin to download our state. So save link as, and then tell it where to go. Okay. But for our uses, we're going to cancel that portion, and we're just going to stick with this this aspect. When you obtain the data, it's going to be in a zip folder. And this is their way of packaging multiple items together in one unit. This helps in email, obviously helps in downloading, and it keeps everything together. We need to extract it. So depending on the software or operating system that you're using, you'll need to do that. Now, a common way is to just right click and extract all. This works on some of the older Office environments, or Windows environments, I'm sorry. Or in some of the newer ones, you can simply click on it and this new portion on the ribbon shows up and it'll say extract. You can select it and extract all. It does the same, and we'll give it the same exact name. We'll just go ahead and extract all. Please keep a copy of your original file, and for the purposes of exams, you'll need to show that you're using the correct year. So go ahead and hold on to the zip file so you can upload that to show that your research methodology is consistent. Now open up the file and let's talk a little bit about some of these items. I'm not going to go over everything because the nuance is not terribly important. What is important is that you understand there are multiple items going on, or multiple files working together, and here's what's happening. We call these items, or this particular file set, this spatial file, as a shape file. And we do that because the extension is .shp, but the extension is .shp. It is the shape of it. So you'll notice this is the largest one. This is everything that defines the boundary of the state. So California is straight in some portions and squiggly in others. And you get to other states and it's just nice and straight. So it does take up some space. You'll notice this DBF, or a database file. This is the attributes that are default with this spatial component, right? And it will show you that it's looking at the name, let's do a little bit of cleaning here. Here's the name of it. It's California, or Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, etc., etc., etc. And maybe it'll have the U.S. Postal Service abbreviation. It has some other items that if you're into programming and putting this together, these would be some features for you. Here's the area of land. I get this question on a very regular basis. What is this? This is the area of land. So if you want to know the land mass, then this would be it, right? Real quick inspection, set a filter, area of land, largest to smallest. So the largest state land mass wise is Alaska. Makes sense. Land mass wise is Texas, right? And then California. And then same for water, right? We could sort by water, and we get an idea that Alaska has the most area of water, which makes sense because it's like this giant peninsula with a significant number of islands protruding out. But we could do some real quick investigation on what we're looking at on the spatial part, but don't change this, and most of the time you don't even really want to open it except to do a cursory preview of what's inside of it. But most of the time you'll just see it inside the software. So do not save. The next one is the PRJ, and this is the projection. This is how it takes a shape and matches it to the map, or puts it on the map. Because remember, these boundaries are actually created on a spheroid. Let's just call it a sphere for the sake of simplicity. And the reason I bring this up is that it's a very common item that, or issue that students or even professionals have when these files get moved around. They'll just grab a couple of them, or they'll somehow lack the projection file, and it'll flag an error. So my biggest recommendation is to just not move this around. If you're going to move something around, move this zip file and then re-extract it. Okay. But this is so that's what's happening with these items. Some of this other stuff, it's not necessarily helpful at this point. If you get a little more advanced, you can handle what's in there and why it's in there. But we'll just stick with the shapefile. This is what holds the lines, the line work, the points, and the database file, which is the attributes immediately attached to the spatial file, and the projection. And again, the projection is mostly just because students tend to lose that for some reason, and professionals do as well. Okay, so we now have our spatial data, and we're ready to move on to our software, our ArcGIS Pro software. So go ahead and get that started, and maybe review this video to make sure that you know how to navigate the TIGERLine shapefiles. Maybe practice by grabbing a different year and picking out, oh well, we have 2015, what about 2018? And just make sure you're really comfortable with that.